For those that don't know, Nico Iamaleava, if you were under a rock, is with UCLA now, no longer with the University of Tennessee. That was right alongside, I would say, Tennessee's 2022 season as a whole, the most exciting thing that happened under Josh Heupel and during his tenure. Would you agree with that, Caleb?
Yes, totally. 100%.
He's a close second almost. I think some people would have even said, had Tennessee lost another game in 2022 but gotten Nico at the time, they would have been okay with that. And I know that sounds crazy. But now suddenly Tennessee's quarterback position is in a way different predicament. And that is Tennessee has to find a quarterback. Is it Jake Merklinger, who we thought was going to be the incumbent starter? Is it Joey Aguilar, who now most people think will be the starter, considering the fact that he comes from UCLA with a little bit more experience? Or could it potentially be George McIntyre? I think obviously he would be the long shot unless he's just a phenom. He did come in January, so maybe there's that possibility. But I think we both think this is a two-horse race. So my question is, let's start with Aguilar. Joey Aguilar is the starter, and things go fine. I don't think you and I are predicting a 12-0 season. Making the college football playoff, I think, would be a major success given the issues at quarterback. But if you go with Joey Aguilar, and even if things work out, now I'm going to take off the table that either of these guys are the next Heath Schuler or Peyton Manning. Okay. If they're that's great. But even Peyton Manning as a freshman wasn't fantastic, and Heath Schuler didn't play. So first year starters in this day and age of college football, it's a struggle. So let's say they're good, but not elite. Obviously, this argument is moot, or mute, as they say in Maynardville, if they come out and they are Mike Vick superstar type players that change the course of a team in their first year as a starter. We don't think that's going to happen. I also don't think they'll either fall flat on their face. So we're dealing somewhere, I believe, between a C and B performance. If that's the case, and giving that as the backdrop, how do you think fans will perceive Joey Aguilar, and in particular, Josh Heupel, if Aguilar's good, serviceable, but not great?
I think Josh Heupel's screwed either way. And I'll even say it if he's great. I think Josh Heupel, if Joey Aguilar is great or good or serviceable, no matter what Tennessee does this year, it'll be a bad look for Josh Heupel. Because if Joey Aguilar comes out and Tennessee goes, 6-6, 5-7, everybody's going to be mad at the Nico thing. And one, he's already screwed because he went 6-6, 5-7, right? No matter what.
Yes.
But if they go 10-2, 11-1, and Joey Aguilar's great, Josh Heupel still looks bad. Because then you come back to the table and you say, well, wait a minute. If they went 10-2 or 11-1, why did you spend and invest so much on a quarterback like Nico Iamaleava in the first place when you could have just gotten Joey Aguilar?
No. That's Caleb, if Joe Aguilar comes out and he's gangbusters, then it's easy to say, listen, everybody misses on prospects. Everybody misses on high school guys that they think are going to be superstars. The best coaches in the world have done that. So let me go ahead and tell you, if Joey Aguilar is first team All SEC, then people are going to say, now we're talking extremes. This is not going to happen, okay? But if he's that good, people are going to say, wow, look at that Josh Heupel. He recruited the wrong quarterback. He admitted it. I bet he ran him off, and he went and got Joey Aguilar. That's the way it'll shake out. But he's not going to be that great. So we can go ahead and set that aside.
But we also would say
to you as well, Lindsay. What?
But then we would also say that you could say he recruited the wrong quarterback, ran him off, but then we would be like, that's the second time he's done that. Because every bit of success he had under Hendon Hooker, all we could ever say was, how did he pick Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker?
No, you're taking it too far. And your argument has some merit, but you're taking it way too far. Because if Joey Aguilar ends up being an all SEC performer, that means Tennessee's making the college football playoff and maybe even advancing. and things are all copacetic. There's not going to be an issue there, but he's not going to be that great. Lindsay said the show should have 80,000 subscribers minimum. But yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. And Derek, nice enough to say Happy Father's Day to Travis Henry over and over. But here's what's likely going to happen. They're going to get a quarterback that played about like Nico last year, who was 6th, 7th, 8th rating throughout the season in the SEC as far as quarterback rating. That's about what they're going to get. He was a little higher towards the end of the season. They may get Joe Milton, who was middle of the pack as well. But at the end of the day, you have to look at Joey Aguilar as being that type of quarterback, and that's about what I believe he'll be. Now, if he's that, now I will be willing to back your point. Then I think a lot of people are going to say, why did you put that much into Nico? And if any quarterback can run this thing, why are you spending $2 million on a quarterback? That's something that you pointed out before. Do you want to spend $2 million on one player, or do you want to spend $250,000 on 8 different players? That, I think, is the new direction they're going to go. Now, if he falls on his face, we all know that it didn't work out. So today's tough question is Josh Heupel criticized either way? Possibly, because everybody's criticized nowadays. But today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones.
All right, Dylan, I think, agrees with you. He says it just makes people look twice at Heupel now. It says a lot that his best quarterback was a Pruitt transfer, and the guy that was supposed to be his prodigy was a complete bust and ran for the hills. That is Nico. Caleb, that's right up your point, so I'll let you address that.
I mean, Dylan hit the nail on the head. He's absolutely right. And even going before that, I've tracked Josh Heupel's history with quarterbacks ever since he got fired at Oklahoma and went to Utah State. His entire rise as an offensive mind on his way to Tennessee was dealing with quarterbacks that he didn't want. He didn't sign Drew Lock when he went to Missouri. He inherited Drew Lock. Then he goes to UCF to become the head coach. He inherits Mackenzie Milton. Now, yes, he did recruit Dylan Gabriel, to his credit. That's the one player he recruited that he signed that he had success with. But he tried to start Brandon Wimbush, a Notre Dame transfer, over Gabriel the first year Gabriel was there in 2019, and that was a bust. So Josh Heupel has such a long track record to this point of success with quarterbacks he didn't go after, and not a lot of success with quarterbacks he did go after, that it does right now. You could say, yes, he did go after, he technically went after Joey Aguilar. That was the guy he wanted after Nico transferred to UCLA, but I don't know where you stand on this, Dave. I think Joey Aguilar fell into his lap more than he scouted Joey Aguilar.
Yes, I agree with that. If let's just say, for instance, if Nico Iamaleava transfers to Oregon State, you probably don't get Joey Aguilar, right?
Right, exactly.
He just happened to go to. I mean, you have to remember, nobody transfers in that spring transfer, especially not quarterbacks. So, nobody. I mean, it's not like Joey Aguilar had dozens of offers that he could go jump on board. I mean, he needed the place that needed the quarterback, and Tennessee needed the quarterback because Nico was taking his spot. So, Lindsay says Aguilar is serviceable. If he's great, Tennessee will go 11-1. Aguilar's ceiling is unknown, makes the season super exciting. I agree, it's very exciting. Now, my question is, what happens? I mean, this is the ultimate disaster scenario. Nico has a fantastic season. Joey Aguilar is average to below average, or doesn't start, and Jake Merklinger does. If that's the scenario, then everybody has said that Josh Heupel gets a pass this season because of the quarterback situation. If Nico goes out there and he's one of the best quarterbacks in that conference, he doesn't get a pass. You've got to ask yourself what went wrong. And I'll tell you who else doesn't get a pass is Danny White doesn't get a pass. Danny White doesn't get a pass for whoever he put in charge of negotiating these contracts, or whoever was in charge of negotiating contracts. Or I know that the university wasn't supposed to be involved, but don't tell me for a second they weren't when you're talking about multi-millions of dollars. I'm sure in some shape, form, or fashion they were involved, or it's just a goofball system. And maybe it was. Maybe that's why they came in with legislation. But I don't think anybody gets a pass if Nico plays well for UCLA and Tennessee gets average quarterback play. Today's tough question. Let's put it on the message board. Is it up on the message board already, Caleb?
No, I will put it up now.
Is there a situation? What situation does Josh Heupel look good? And is it Joey Aguilar plays well, Joey Aguilar is average, or neither? That plays to yours specifically. I know I veered off path a little bit. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Great point on the message board. Lindsay says, I think most coaches would have spent on Nico what Heupel did. He looks amazing on film. It was Manning, Arch Manning, that was ranked higher than Nico by most services. But I don't know how much money they took. They don't need the money. They probably picked the right spot. And knowing the Manning family, yeah, I think they do a lot of things that are orchestrated, and they do a lot of things that are best for the Mannings, and I don't blame them. One of the things I don't think they do is go for more money. So I could easily see them saying, if Steve Sarkisian came to them and said, listen, I can give him $5 million a year if you want, but I'd rather give him $1 million and spend more money elsewhere. I could see that. So let's take that out of the equation. How many coaches out there would have spent $2 million a year under the former, we've already changed, but under the former format, how many coaches would have spent that type of money if they had it? I would go with the lion's share, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. I would go with the lion's share. I mean, for a quarterback like Nico specifically you're talking about, I mean,
let's just talk Nico. Yeah. I mean, essentially he was the number 1 rated quarterback in that class that you could buy. You couldn't buy Arch Manning.
No, you could not buy Arch Manning. And I do think most would, particularly with if they're system coaches, because I think you and I are kind of in the mindset that Arch Manning probably is the better NFL quarterback, but Nico was the better quarterback for certain systems, right? Where he could put up big numbers because he had such a beautiful
I'm going to differ with you there, buddy. I think with that accuracy, now I think he was hesitant and he didn't read well. We learned that later, but just looking at him as a prospect, I'm trying to, take my judgment back a little bit. With that accuracy, I think he would have been good for Bill Walsh's West Coast system. But in retrospect, he has a hesitancy to him in college ball that scares me.
Right. That makes you more of a system player, because to be a pro style quarterback, you got to know you got to be quick with your decision making. That's like the number 1 rule.
Agreed. But I didn't know that going in, I guess is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, I didn't either, to be fair. Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you overall. You probably will. But at the same time, my issue with this has been that I never thought Heupel should, because I think Heupel's system hasn't really been reflective of how good a quarterback is to this point. I've had to come around and accept that myself. I thought before last year Heupel was a great offensive coach and Nico would take his offensive system to just another level. But now I'm coming around to, it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is as long as he can do basic things, and you should be focusing your talent elsewhere. And so that's where I'm landing on this.
I love this analogy by Derek. Derek said, Hype wanted to see what he could do with a car that's barely street legal is all. Hope he makes better decisions going forward with the quarterback spot. Amen, brother. Listen, did you ever race cars when you were in high school?
I never raced.
Okay, well, I did.
I was a good kid.
Yeah, well, I wasn't. But moral of the story is I rarely lost a race, and I had a Volkswagen Golf. You know why I rarely lost a race? Because I didn't take my foot off the pedal. And I think that Josh Heupel, to use Derek's analogy, took his foot off the pedal. I don't think there were a lot of routes over the middle. I don't think there were a lot of drag and slant routes. I think he ran what he knew that Nico was comfortable with, and he wasn't willing to do other things. He better not do that with Joey Aguilar, and he better not do that going forward. He needs to open up the playbook just like he did with Hendon Hooker.
Oh, he does, but I think he will. But I think he will have to, because I think that again, with Joey Aguilar, you're not going to have that many over the top deep balls opportunities that you did with Nico. He doesn't have that type of deep ball. You know, the deep balls will be 20 yards, not 40, basically. And I think more of the passes will be over the middle. Now, Heupel's going to limit it some, because his play calling and his scheme just doesn't call for that many aggressive passes over the middle. That's why quarterbacks don't turn the ball over in a system. That's why I always laugh. I mean, I'm sure you heard it, Dave. Like, you hear these people praise. You hear quarterbacks for Tennessee get praised for not turning the ball over, and I'm like, they're not really there to not turn the ball over. You're there to throw 18 touchdowns in a game.
True, but didn't you think that with all the tunnel screens they ran with Nico and all that sort of thing, that the pass play selection, the passing route selection was incredibly conservative?
Yeah, but I actually think it was just as conservative with Hendon Hooker 2 years ago. I think it just worked more. I think the player.
I don't think. I bet you they ran that little wide receiver screen half as much with Hooker.
I think there weren't as many. First of all, there's a lot of those are options for the quarterback. There's a deep one, there's a deep route and the screen route, and they read the safety on which one to go with. So Nico was choosing that screen a lot of times, I think, over the deep route, because guys were covered.
Well, you don't choose a screen. Screen's called.
I think they have that. I think a lot of times quarterbacks in the Heupel system have the option.
The other receiver, nobody's going out. They're blocking. I mean, I don't think you have that option. A couple of other notes from the message board. I think ego is why Joey is there. I think Josh should have taken his lumps and rolled with what we had at the end of the day. What about that? Maybe can we make that a topic for?
I mean, I'm of the mindset that he should have gone all in with Merklinger and McIntyre. Like I said, he should have started George McIntyre from the start.
George McIntyre. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go that far. General Ursus says Aguilar isn't as talented as Nico, but his deep outside ball is a strength that Nico lacked. That could be the key. That could ultimately be the key and what determines everything. And if that is, if he completes the deep ball at an 80% clip dependent compared to Hendon Hooker, this is a totally different offense, right?
Yes. No, I agree. But again, we have to also take into account somewhat the receiver issues last year and the shell coverages that existed last year. The biggest problem with Nico, and we talk about Hendon Hooker versus Nico and how Hendon Hooker wasn't as hesitant. Nico had to be more willing to throw some jump balls than even Hendon Hooker had to have. Because with Hendon Hooker, let's be honest, 90% of the time the receiver was bare. No one was close to him, right, when he threw the ball. Whereas teams had adjusted last year. This is where Aguilar is a good fit. Aguilar's not afraid to throw a jump ball. If Chris Brazel's in one-on-one coverage on the outside, Aguilar's going to throw it up and say, hey, Chris, go make a play. And you need a lot more of that. You need a T. Martin Peerless Price situation. Dave, how many times did T. Martin just say, hey, Peerless, go make a play, and I'm just going to throw the ball up, and I want you to win this battle with your defensive back.
But I think you'd agree you'd rather those guys be running open, and Brew McCoy was not running open because he didn't have the speed that he once had. Who were the other two primary receivers they threw to last year?
Dante Thornton and Squirrel White, both injured at different times.
I'll give you Dante Thornton is a guy that should have caught more jump balls, but as you mentioned, injured. Squirrel White to me is more of an underneath receiver. I mean, you don't want to live and die on jump balls unless you got Randy Moss.
No, but Chris Brazel can win those. And I think you're going to see a few more of those thrown this year because of a guy like Chris Brazel, who will be the other receiver on the outside. You got to let your receiver win some of those jump balls, particularly if they're physical. I mean, I go back to the Juwan Jennings years, and I think there were a lot of jump balls that Jared Garantano just trusted him to make sometimes for all of Garantano's faults. Otherwise,
Listen, Derek brings up a point that I've said for a 25-year career, and I don't know that he meant it, but he alluded to it. He said Nico's not there cerebrally. Period. Milton wasn't either. Timing beats speed. Technique beats power. Agreed. But the first part of what Derek said, Nico's not there cerebrally, period. I've said before that I don't think player X gets it mentally, but that doesn't mean I think he's dumb. Those are two completely different skill sets. You can know the encyclopedia from front to back, but it doesn't mean that you can quickly process and get the ball out. Would you agree those are two different skill sets?
two totally different things. Totally
Okay.
different things.
But I'm going to draw a parallel, which I rarely do, off the field and on the field. I think he was so used to taking orders from his father mostly, but family and then agent, that he was gun shy. I think that carried over on the field.
Really? You think that actually carried over onto the field?
I really do. I really do. I think he was used to being second fiddle and kind of letting his talent take care of everything, and everything was fine. And then when things weren't fine, they weren't. That's just the way I see him and the way things shook out.